For a great cup of joe, there's one thing you should know. Your morning brew can also be playful. Buff Boy Brewing guys make the temperature rise, and you surely feel naughty when you swallow our coffee. If you want some real heat, give your mouth a fine treat. You will want some more, rest assured. Buff Boy Brewing, you can't get enough of.
It's time for The Scribble, your weekly fix of celebrity chats, bizarre stories in the news, and basic random chatter with best-selling author and syndicated radio host Jeremy Bradley. Make sure your seat is in the upright and locked position and your barf bag is securely in place. Here's Jeremy Bradley.
Thank you very much, Larson. Jeremy Bradley here. This is The Scribble, 30 minutes of time-wasting fun coming your way. I appreciate your attention. Let me ask you this question. When is it okay to find something in public and keep it? Does it depend on where you are? Does, if the place has a lost and found, do you go and turn it into, the counter, or do you say something to somebody? Or is it just kind of like, well, it's here, so I'll take it. Now, I mention this because I'm going to be telling you a few stories coming up in the show. But, there's an instance where, let's say at the airport, where there was a Los Angeles news anchor, Lou Parker, who years ago had found, quote-unquote, some headphones when she was going through security checkpoint, and took them. And then all of a sudden got busted because somebody was like, this woman, stole my headphones, had gone to reported it to security. They end up tracking down Lou Parker as she's getting on her plane, escort her off, and, trouble ensues because it's like, oh, now she ended up going through some kind of a program and I guess it was wiped off of her record. So that's one example. But let's say you find something in a public restaurant, and it's just there, and it's been there for a long time. The staff hasn't done anything with it. It's just there. Is it up for grabs? Is it fair game? Well, that's one of the many stories I'm going to be talking about on The Scribble, and it starts right after this.
Isn't it crazy that you wait for payday, but before you know it, you're strapped for cash again? It's time to stop blowing your money and become a smart spender with the book, The Official Guide to Being an American Cheapskate at cheapskatebook.com. Learn simple ways to cut costs at home every day and during special times of the year. Don't go broke at Christmas. Don't remortgage the house for a fancy vacation. The book is filled with tips to save you money throughout the year. Check out the best-selling book, The Official Guide to Being an American Cheapskate at cheapskatebook.com or on Amazon and iTunes.
Ever had something to get off your chest but never had the balls to say it? That's a load of crap. Speak Free with JB.com is exactly what you've been waiting for. Your chance to tell it like it is and not care what anybody else thinks. Have your say on issues of the day. Join newspaper and radio columnist Jeremy Bradley as he tells it like it is. Hundreds of thousands of people have stopped by, including some well-known celebrities who have had a chat with JB and speak candidly about what's really going on in the world. You can join them too. Have a rant or a rave. Be brave and head on over to www.speakfreewithjb.com now.
It's never too early to start thinking about your next holiday. Have you checked out Mexico recently? From tequila tasting, swimming with horses, to ziplining through the jungle and watching whales and dolphins in their natural habitat, Puerto Vallarta has it all. Visit mexico.jbonair.com to see all the fun PV has to offer. That's at mexico.jbonair.com for hundreds of photos, interviews, and videos from around the tourist hotspot. Check out mexico.jbonair.com for all the fun. That's mexico.jbonair.com.
Who are the Kardashians feuding with now? What did that little thug Justin Bieber do this time? Who's getting hitched? And who's headed for Splitsville? Hear the latest celebrity news and gossip every day on Entertainment Wrap-Up. The good, the bad, the ugly, but mostly the ridiculously hilarious. It's all recapped in this daily segment at entertainmentwrapup.com. Have a laugh at the expense of the rich and famous when they take themselves way too seriously. It's 3 minutes of time-wasting fun at entertainmentwrapup.com. Check out Entertainment Wrap-Up at entertainmentwrapup.com. Brought to you by Speak Free Books.
Jeremy Bradley here on the Scribble. I'm going to do a back in my day story now. There was a saying, and again, I'm talking to the people, 40 years plus. There was a saying when I was younger, finders keepers, losers weepers, right? I always thought it was losers reapers. When you're a super young kid, you don't really. What it meant was, I found it, it's mine, I keep it, and if you lost it, sucks to be you. That's essentially what it is. So fast forward to present day, where, full disclosure, my husband has called me gross. I don't know how many times, just for little simple things that I do. Now I guess maybe after the pandemic, people sort of looked at public food as gross. So I mean something like a buffet, right? Because you witnessed, so many people just being really gross with their hygiene and sanitation, I guess, but that's kind of the same thing. Right? Because I remember actually asking one of my colleagues, and this is a crew here that loves a buffet, let me tell you. I'm going to get off track here now that I've mentioned buffet. One of our staffers, my husband's assistant, Lisa, she's been with our team for I don't know how long. There was a point where I wish we could get her in here. She's not. I could call her, but there was a good, I would say probably about a 6-month stretch where we just went on this buffet kick, and we would. We found a bunch of different, it was generally hotels, kind of like by the airport here. They tend to have buffets. I don't really know why. So we would just start calling around in the morning. When I'm saying literally, 9:30 in the morning. It's not even close to lunchtime yet, and we're trying to find out what the buffets are serving, because they'll change up the menu depending on the day. There were so many times when we would call, and they're like, oh, we don't know, like they're not even here yet. The chef is, the kitchen's not even open. Why, they're not working on lunch yet. Oh, okay, well I'll call back in 20 minutes. So we literally it was on my desk, kind of like under my monitor. I had like a kind of a notepad sort of a thing, and we basically had this database. I had all these phone numbers written and pages and pages of just scribbling, because I would write down, they're having, whatever, like clam chowder and chicken fingers and, potato salad or whatever it was that they were serving. I would write down the menu, and then I would go over to Lisa and be like, okay, this is the lunch today. Okay, well, what about this place? So we would basically call around to all the different hotel restaurants in the morning. One of us would. And then we'd report back to the other and say, okay, this is what they're serving. Where do we want to go for lunch? So we're not even hungry, right? Like it's 9:00 in the morning. We're not but here we are already looking ahead 3-4 hours. And, and I'm sure the hotels at some point, the staff were kind of like, is this guy again? Like, it's fucking 9:45 in the morning and he's calling us about lunch. So, and we'd have to sit on hold. They'd either transfer us, they'd have somebody go all the way to the restaurant if they didn't have a direct line. And then they'd come back, and so I'd have them repeat it again, and I'd write it down, then I'd go and talk to Lisa, or then she would call that day. But it just became this thing that we did. I would say, for about a good 6 months. So anyway, fast forward then, pandemic or whatever, we were saying, like, we're never going to a buffet again, because people are just gross. It's disgusting. I'm not going to, go and people are, touching the food. Yeah, even as it is, I look at some restaurants now, and I'm kind of like, God, if this is the class of people they hire, I don't even really want to eat here, right? Can I really trust this? Okay, so when I have that kind of an opinion, now you're going to be like looking at me differently now. Well, I guess you don't really look at me when you're listening, so you're not looking at me, can't look at me with disgust because you only hear me. I've done a few things. There's 3 stories that come to mind that have made my husband say, you're gross. Now, the first one was, this was actually several years ago in China, but he brought it up when we were at a restaurant a couple of days ago. So when I was in China, we had taped tourism programming in China for our syndicated radio shows, and that was about 7 years ago, because our relationship was still really new. And I remember telling him this even then, and he this was before we were married, and so he sealed the deal. Don't worry, it didn't drive him away. We were coming back from China, and we were at the airport. I think it was Toronto, I don't remember where. Nevertheless, it was at an airport, and I had gone into the bathroom, and I went into the stall, and there was, and sometimes there's like a little shelf that you can put your bag or, whatever on a little shelf in the stall. And so there was an unopened bottle of ginger ale that was just sitting there. So I looked at that and I was kind of like, well, it's unopened. Why not take it? Right? I mean, nobody's going to come back to, So here's the deal. Now, when I tell this story, there's one of two reactions, right? Most people are kind of like, ew, it was a bathroom, whatever. Then when I say this part, people have a change of heart. And I was just talking to my cousin, like a few hours ago, and she's one of those people who was like, oh no. And then I said, but wait, there's more. So this was not just in a regular, public bathroom in a mall or whatever. This was on the security side of, in the airport. So again, not just like common folk and whoever. So my reasoning or my thought process was pretty much anything that's gone through or that's on this side of it has gone through security, right? It's been checked out. It's been okayed. It hasn't, we're not talking about an empty bottle that's just been filled up or whatever, and I sniff it and go, oh, it's ginger ale, I'll take it. No. Sealed, actual brand name bottle. And so then when I tell people that, they're kind of like, well, yeah, I guess, like, why not, right? So I took that and I had a bottle of ginger ale from an airport bathroom that was unopened on the security side. And then, so let me ask you then, just hearing that first part of the story, right? I was in a bathroom, blah, blah, blah. Were you kind of like, okay, gross? No. And then when you hear that where it is, that it was pretty, I would guess, safe and secure, then do you have a different opinion? Send me an email live@jbonair.com. My husband still says no. And why does he say that? He says that because this is where it's gonna sound braggy, but this is what he said to me. He said, you've got more money than you know what to do with. You can buy a $2 or $3 bottle of ginger ale. Now, here's the thing. Out of principle, I don't, because I'm not going to pay airport prices for stuff like that. You can have all the money in the world, but I'm putting my foot down and going, no, you're not going to gouge me just because I'm here at an airport. A fair price is a fair price. So I refuse to do, I'm not one of those people who will go and buy like the snacks and stuff at the airport. No, I'll take my own. I'll bring them with me. Okay. So that's what he said about that. Now then, there's two situations where we were just recently at, I'm not going to name the restaurants, but two different fast food restaurants. This happened within a couple of weeks of each other. So the first time we're sitting, we're having our salads or whatever it was that we had, and there was a table kind of beside us that there was somebody at, and he had eaten whatever, and then when he left, he had cleaned up his garbage, but he left a little container of salad on the table. The dressing, a little package of dressing was still on top of the container, and the salad was pretty much untouched, and even the cutlery was still on it as well. So it appears that this was either just somebody who was like, I don't really want the salad, let me just leave it here. Because like I said, he took his garbage, so it's not like it was just, oh, I'm going to throw out everything. But so my interpretation of that is somebody can have the salad then, like it's up for grabs. I didn't throw it out if somebody wants it. Now again, you can look at that and go, that's like used food or whatever. But again, my reasoning was it wasn't touched. We were really just sitting, like we saw this guy. So it's not like it was from 7 hours ago and it's still sitting there. We saw the guy that was sitting it. We weren't watching him for, every second that we were there and he was there. But it seemed kind of safe because, like I said, the logic is he threw out the rest of the stuff that he had eaten, and this was left behind. So whatever. And it was just some, young guy, whatever. Again, he could have poisoned it. He could have done whatever. I get that. But after a little while, I figured, okay, well, he's gone. Everything else has been taken. The restaurant's kind of empty. So I took the salad. I took the little salad home. So again, I ask you, is that gross? Like I said, I could understand if there was a fork that was used or, the dressing was gone or something. It was basically like he had just taken it from the counter and it was, he just didn't want it. It was just still there. I'm using my judgment in these instances. I'm not just, oh, what was that? It was on Seinfeld, that I have it. It was George. What was he took a donut? Wasn't he ate out of the garbage? He took something. Say that again. Who was that? Bonnie? No. Yeah, he was visiting his girlfriend's family, and then sure, yeah, it was a half-eaten donut or something. It was on top though in the garbage, and then he got busted as he's eating out of the garbage. The mom, the girlfriend's mom, comes in, right? I think it was the mom, and so he had this embarrassment that he was eating garbage. That's a completely different story. I didn't pick anything out of a garbage. This was basically a full salad that was still just sitting there. So, would you have done that? Would you have taken the salad? Would you? Because you can't now go back. Like, there's no way that you can take that back to the counter and go, oh, here, I didn't want the salad. I mean, well, maybe a restaurant would reuse it. I don't know, but I would hope that they wouldn't. So, you could have done that. But, I mean, chances are they would just throw it out, which really, And it's the same thing when I've had instances where at a fast food restaurant, they screw up my food, and then they try to... they will throw it out and then just make you another one. I'm like, no, you just forgot the bacon. Just put the bacon. I don't need a brand new one. I'm not asking you to remake it. I'm just saying you can take this one back, drop a couple slices of bacon, and give it right back to me. Or even just give me a napkin and put some bacon on a napkin and then hand it to me, or a little paper bag and give me whatever. I don't need an entirely brand new one, right? So I would hope that they would throw out a salad if all of a sudden it was returned to the counter, right? Because you don't know what happened to it or what's going on. We were sitting right there. It was this young guy, So would you eat it? Would you take it? live@jbonair.com is the email address, live@jbonair.com. And the final story for this grossness was just yesterday afternoon. We went, we don't go to fast food very often, but I don't know. Some days you're kind of like, you know what? Let's just go for it. And I've said before, my husband is a fitness model, so we really don't have junk food in our house. There's, we don't really have bad things like that. But if we do get a craving, we're both very active people. His body fat is next to none. I'm underweight. My doctor actually keeps telling me to eat more. So I'm like, all right, fine. Anyway, so we'd gone to a fast food restaurant, and we'd ordered, and it was a restaurant that has like the self-serve drink thing. So they just give you the cup and then you go. So we drew that, we fill our cups, iced tea or ginger ale or whatever it was, and then we go and sit down. Now, right beside the drink machine, maybe about 5 feet to the right, kind of almost up against a wall, but still on the counter of the drink machine, there were two cups, that one inside the other, and then they had their two paper straws, which were still in the paper, and then two lids just on top of that. Right? So if you've got more than one meal, they hand you the two cups together, whatever, and then, okay, here are your cups. So that was a few feet away from the drink machine. You see where I'm going with this, just based on the other stories I've told. So we go and sit down. I noticed that when we had filled our cups and then we waited a few minutes for the food, we go to the table, we're sitting. I'm keeping an eye on that from across the restaurant because I was like, all right, yeah, those are paid for drinks. Okay, right? So maybe, again, either somebody forgot them or they just didn't want their drinks, whatever it was. There were two cups that were sitting there. So I leave it. And we're talking, we were having our lunch, and then when I went to I went to fill up my drink cup before we were leaving, and I noticed that those two unused cups with the paper straw still, and the lid, they weren't wet inside, nothing had happened, they were just new cups, they were still sitting there. So I went to the counter and I asked for one of those little cardboard containers like that carries the drinks, and I went and filled them up. I filled them up. And I took home the two cups with drinks in them because they were just left there. Now, here's the thing. Am I stealing? Well, I guess I'm taking somebody else's, but it was paid for because I'm assuming they were paid for because here they were on the other side of the counter, like from the staff. The staff had handed them to somebody. The staff just doesn't do that because you wanted, just two cups because I'm going to go steal some Coke here. No, they give you those cups when you've paid for your meal or whatever it is. So did I specifically pay for them? No, but they were there, and they were there for the filling, right? Now, you could go and say, well, by that logic, somebody could leave an empty water bottle on the counter, and you would just go and fill it up. That's different. These were restaurant cups that were, So I ended up filling them up with one with iced tea and one with lemonade, and I took them home. So would you do that? Would you leave them? Now, like I said, I'd given an appropriate amount of time. It's not like, oh, I went and stole somebody's cups and they're like, wait a second, didn't we leave our cups here? No, we'd sat there talking for a really long time. So the restaurant was pretty much, it had already flipped the entire customer base. Like they'd flipped the tables. These were new people that were already in there. So the original people that were already seated when we took our table, they were already gone. So, we'd sat there talking for about a good half hour, 45 minutes. We were loitering, perhaps you would say. So there we go. These cups are up. They're still there, though. I'll fill them up and I'll take them. Am I stealing? Is that stealing? Tell me. Send me an email, live@jbonair.com. live@jbonair.com. So do you do anything gross like that? Or is that just me? Like my husband has said, just like the little salad or the drinks. He's like, you could, if you wanted that, you could have just spent the 99 cents. You could have just went to the counter, or if you wanted a drink, you could have just went and said, I'd like 2 cups, please, 1 with lemonade and 1 iced tea, and I will pay the $4 for it. That's not the point, though. I don't know. Whatever. There's worse things that you could be. What's interesting though is, I'm not justifying it, but I just say like there's so many people who are doing much worse things at restaurants and to service people. Like the fact that this restaurant, this second one with the cups that I was talking about, they still have. I thought it was for Corona. It's not. The staff was telling me probably about 5 or 6 months ago that. I asked, like, oh, you guys still have your little, like, plastic protection barrier, for Corona. And they said, no, actually, that's to protect us from staff. And I said, well, like, what do you mean? Are they, like, have they been throwing food at you or whatever? And the woman said, no, they'll hop over the counter. They'll just come and, steal fries. They'll come and steal food. They don't take money, but they'll come and just take all the apple pies or, whatever it is that they serve there. Something that's, under those heaters or, just easy to grab. And they will do that. And I said, they'll jump the counter, like literally hop the counter. And she said, yes. Yeah. And then she has said, it wasn't on her shift, but she has said that she's heard about, the throwing things. And you've seen those videos on YouTube or social media where people have those freakouts and they'll just start chucking whatever they can grab at the staff because they're pissed off. But the fact is that, yes, at a fast food counter now, it's not just, the 3 or 4 registers and whatever. They're behind secured plexiglass. Like they are, and this, it's like bolted to the counter. Now, what's really interesting was that this restaurant was recently renovated earlier in the year. And when they had just, they had closed for a little while, and then when they reopened, there wasn't that barrier. So I thought, oh, okay, well, maybe because it's now a modern, it's, sort of been a redesigned restaurant, it's sort of classier now. And so then when we just went, not, the other day, they've got it back there. So I thought, I wonder if something happened. I wonder if it's kind of like, okay, you know what, we tried to take it away for a little while, but people suck. And so even, the employee was saying that, what are you're going to call the police and, you're going to report and say, well, somebody just came and stole, three containers of fries, like 3 boxes of fries. And the police are going to come, barreling with lights and siren. They'll be like, we're not coming there for, $4 of fry theft. It's not, and the thieves or whatever you want to call them know that, right? They know that they're going to be long gone by the police are not going to prioritize this and make it, they're not going to stop what they're doing. There's far bigger crimes, happening. So it's, it's sort of a, well, I guess it's not a, is it a catch-22? No, it's not a catch-22. It's just a, why bother, right? And so it's just going to be an endless cycle endless circle because people are just going to, keep doing it. And I said to the girl, because she was, what happened at that time when I was talking with her was that somebody, I guess, had a tantrum. We weren't really near the counter, so I wasn't really paying attention. But she was going around dusting the lights. It was sort of slow that afternoon, so she was doing a little busy work. And I guess she had heard the person making a big deal at the counter and yelling. And so another customer had asked, what was that about or what? And then she said, oh, well, the person was demanding fries and the counter person wouldn't give them fries. And so she was yelling and so I had no idea that it was happening. I just wasn't paying attention. And so that's when this started the conversation between me, that customer guy that was there, and then the employee who was cleaning. And so that's when the employee was saying, like, oh yeah, no, they come in, they'll throw things, they'll demand if we don't. And she said back in the day, it used to be they'd come in and ask for your money at midnight or whatever time, that would be a holdup, right? A stick up, a robbery. And now they're coming for food, which now on the flip side, that's basically a sad state of affairs into how society is that people are now not stealing the money. They're basically just stealing so that they can eat. So that's another, that's an entirely different argument or angle or way to look at things anyway. But I'm saying there's just, the civility is my point in this whole thing, which is, and I do know that there was a restaurant. I can't remember. It was fast food. I don't remember the chain, and I don't know if I should shout it out. I don't know if that's my place, but I do know that they would have sometimes like the older fries, or if there was a burger that was made wrong. I talked about that chicken burger, right? Sometimes they'll take it and not necessarily throw it out. There was one restaurant that would hang on to those, and then when somebody was coming in and asking for that, but the problem is that there's an expectation then, which is, okay, well, I'm just going to keep coming here every day. I don't need to help or fend for myself because this restaurant is doing it. So you have to look at things that way. I'm not taking a side either way. I'm just saying these are observations I've made, and it's just tough. I feel for those employees that are being abused. I was going to say beaten down, and I guess sometimes that's literally, right? That's physically that they are, and nobody should have to go through that, obviously, because you're not. See, this I was going to say, it's not a generalization. I mean, a lot of these people are very new to the country, right? This is a fast food job is what they get, and I can say this because the woman that I was referring to that was cleaning was of East Indian descent, and she was the one who said that, I didn't expect coming to this country that, things like that would happen. And I mean, it's pretty shitty because you think that people come to the United States. I'm Canadian, but come to Canada or the United States for those opportunities, and it's great. And I can imagine, I know because my husband is from Brazil, so when he came to Canada, I mean that first job that you get in a new country, I mean it's very exciting because of the opportunity and the promise of being able to support yourself and this sense of freedom and accomplishment and know that you're giving back. I mean, I actually did say to one of our staffers, I said, there's a couple of fast food restaurants that most of the staff is East Indian. And I said, they seem to be the most genuine, like when they say, have a good day or thank you, it feels like they really do mean it. And so to me, for them to have such great pride in their job, I mean, that's what you want when people come here, right? They're supporting themselves, they're paying taxes, that's kind of what, now here we are. This is where people are going to go and get political and be like, well, but here's the thing. Do you want to work in that restaurant? Do you want to deal with what they're dealing with? I don't. And I've said that too recently. We got to go. They're wrapping me up, but I've said that recently that I wouldn't want to work customer service anymore because when I worked in retail, I never did fast food. I worked at Red Lobster, but I was in the kitchen. I wasn't front facing. So Party City, when I was an assistant manager, or when I worked at a luggage store, I worked in a clothing store. People, first of all, just weren't so fed up, and they weren't, losing their shit on employees. But I said I wouldn't want to work customer service anymore. I wouldn't want to be front facing. All of a sudden, somebody's pissed off and they come at me with their camera phone in my face and record me. Knowing me, I would tell them to fuck off, and I would get in trouble. But who knows? Maybe I'd go viral and I'd get applauded, and people would hire me as a customer service trainer. I don't know, but I just said I wouldn't. Yeah, I have no interest in doing. I mean, I'm retired, so I've got plenty of. I'm well off. I don't need to work. Period. But I would have no interest in doing that, just because. I mean, think about it. Where does it happen the most? I'm not a big shopper, so I don't spend a lot of time in stores. But it's restaurants where I seem to witness it the most. Not necessarily I guess fast food. I I'm trying to think. I've never been in a high-end restaurant and somebody's losing it. Certainly not. And my husband has very expensive. So when we want to do a meal out, he's Mr. Let's go to the fancy places. I certainly, and maybe that is just a class thing where you're kind of like, I've got money. I'm not going to lose my shit. But then at the same time, you hear that those people are kind of demanding and will lose their stuff. But I don't know. It's weird. So tell me your thoughts on everything that I've just rambled on for the past 25 minutes about. Send me an email, live@jbonair.com. live@jbonair.com. We're out of time, so I will talk to you same time, same place next week on The Scribble. Bye-bye for now.
We hear you chirping. Get scribbling. Tweet up The Scribble at The Scribble Show. Join the discussion with Jeremy Bradley. It's all going down right now on Twitter at The Scribble Show and at thescribbleshow.com. Want more Scribble? Check out thescribbleshow.com for past shows, celebrity interviews, cheapskate tips, and more. That's at thescribbleshow.com and on Twitter at The Scribble Show. The Scribble is a speak-free media presentation.